Hello fellow reloaders. Today we're going to start looking at doing a workup and a reload of the FN57 or the 57x28 cartridge. And we'll make this a multi-part, targeted mostly at the beginner who is looking to advance their skill sets a little bit, because this is definitely a more challenging cartridge to load. Let's chit-chat first about the case and the firearms, why we're reloading, that sort of thing. And start by saying safety is number one, and it is your responsibility and only your responsibility to make sure your reloads are safe to shoot. Okay, so this 57x28 originally was fired out of these P90s, this PS90. Again, I don't shill for any specific brand. This was my first 57x28 firearm. And it runs like the dickens. It shoots great. It is an odd firearm. It is a bit abusive on the brass. Just the FN mechanism is just a bit abusive on the brass. And one of the things that's going to make this load unique and a little bit different from a lot of reloading that you'll see online when you're trying to learn, most of that's targeted at precision reloading. In this case, our workup here is going to be a little bit different. We want them to function well in multiple firearms. And one of the things that's unique about the cartridges, these FN cartridges from the manufacturer and these firearms, is it's one cartridge between the 16-inch carbine length and the pistols. They use the same cartridge, so there's no difference. We want to emulate that with our reloads. And we want one load that eventually shoots reasonably well in all of these. So our objective to load these, really a couple of things. And first, it's got to be shootable in all these firearms. Second, accuracy and precision. Third is cost. This is one where these factory cartridges are about $1 a round. Depending on where you buy them, when you buy them, find them on sale, whatever. We're going to reload these for a cost somewhere around 34 or 35 cents. It's not one that we're going to shoot precision, so the approach is just a little bit different. Every time I test them, one of those key differences, I'll take a number of firearms out to shoot them. Now, these firearms do perform very, very differently. So this P90 uses a mechanism that has a tendency to really blow the shoulders out. And let's just set that one aside so we can pull some of the others up here. So this is the FN pistol. And this is an early one. It's not cut for an optic. It does shoot great. It's, again, an interesting cartridge to shoot. In the choice on whether you like these or not, I think is I certainly wouldn't use it for I probably wouldn't use it for a self-defense cartridge, but it is interesting to shoot. This pistol also tends to blow the shoulders out on the cartridge, and I'll show what exactly that means in a moment. But it's I don't know that it's as bad as the rifle. So let's set that one aside for a moment. This is a newer acquisition for me. It's only been up to the range a couple of times. It's kind of a cool pistol because of the rotating barrel mechanism. It does not blow the cartridges out, the shoulders out on the cartridge, and it leaves them intact much more, which means you work the brass less when you're going to reload it. This one, however, has been finickier, a little more finicky, let's say, about the sizing on the cartridge. So when I put them in the cartridge gauge, they do need to be really truly bottomed out in the gauge to feed well in this particular firearm. But again, when I do my reloads, I want them to work in here just as well as the others. Let's set that one aside. And a more interesting one that I found more recently, this one's really interesting. It is a standard AR-15 lower. What's fascinating about it is it does use the standard P90 magazine, sits on top. So magazine sits on top here, and it feeds from the top, and we use a AR-15 mag with the top chopped out of it and spring and everything removed as a brass catcher. My experience with this has been shockingly good. It's a bit awkward to hold with the mag on top. You can't wrap a thumb or anything over the top of the rail. But my inclination is to really like this. And again, it's kind of an odd setup and kind of a weird rifle, but the first shots I've ever really worked out past 50 yards up to the 100-yard range have been with this one. So I'm very happy with that. And again, just a standard off-the-rack lower with this upper purchased separately and slapped together to make kind of a cool little rifle. So we'll set that one aside and let's talk about these cases. So one of our challenges between our rifles, and I've got a couple of cases pulled aside here, and let's hold them up so we can see them. And the case on the left here, my left hand, fired through an FN. This case right here fired through either that AR platform FN 5.7 by 28 or fired through the Smith 5.7 by 28. And if you look real close, you'll notice that the FN firearm, the shoulder is bumped way higher than the shoulder here. So one of the challenges of reloading this particular case is recognizing how much more this brass is going to need to be worked to resize it correctly and get that shoulder back down where it belongs. So I haven't run a lot of these from the other firearms yet, but I do expect these to have much longer life. I'm not going to sort them out. We'll run them all together for now and see what we get. The other thing about this brass is this is not strong or sturdy brass. This is not some good old 30-06 brass. So when I was gathering up my brass, I put them in these little trays that come from various manufacturers. And I noticed I had one in here with a primer that was still in it. And that's because the projectile has been shoved down. The mouth of the case is all torn up. The heel is torn up. So this was the jam. So out of the last shooting session, ran through about 300 rounds. Of those, about 200 reloads, about 100 new FN cases. And I had one failure, and the only failure was with this FN case that jammed. And I don't recall which firearm this jammed in, but it's trash. Stuff like this, I don't like throwing these away with the primer still good, so I have a jig where I can go detonate that primer. It does have a projectile still in it. I don't want that projectile to be down at the mouth when I set that primer, but I will decommission that primer before throwing that away, but that's trash. So that's got to come out of the pile. Now, my cases here are sorted. These have been fired once, factory ammo fired once, all FN ammo fired once. These have been fired twice, so reloaded once, and you'll notice various markings on the head stamps. Those markings, some just tell me that it was my case and had been fired before, and then some of them were a specific reload for reloads that are being tested, either powder level or something like that. These that are in blue here have the blue head stamps on them. So blue tells me typically that they've been reloaded twice, so they've been fired 3 times. And these red ones right here have been reloaded 3 times now and fired 4 times. And these are near retirement. If you go through and look at these, I was testing these in both different firearms. So again, you'll notice here the shoulder blown out. I can tell that was fired through an FN. This was fired through one of the other firearms, and we're going to reload them all. Historically, we've probably finished, maybe get one more out of these, but typically you'll be done with them. You'll start having neck splitting. When you go to push a projectile in, the shoulders will crush down, and you'll shove the projectile and the shoulder, the neck of the case down in. They just get thin and weak over time. So typically 4. I am going to push these a little bit further. Components are kind of expensive, so we are going to push those a little bit further. Now, reloading these, one of the things I like to teach the beginners is you got to have a plan, okay? And in most cases, that plan is going to come from your manuals, so and the factory ammunition that you're firing. So this manual, this is the Hodgkin's manual. It does have 5.7 by 28 data in it. The data is virtually identical to the data that you will find here in the Western Powders manual. So this does have 5.7, but not much. If you're looking, it's mostly blank page. So only 3 powders there. And if you have other manuals, Lyman and Lee, of course, have basically the same set of data. But really, there's only like one set of data out there. And you'll notice the powders, all of those manuals are going to refer to the same set of powders. And they're all either Western or Ramshot powders. And the bullet selection is very small. So from 35 grains up to 45 grains. I have not tested any 45 grains, and for a specific reason. The 45 grains are all Sierra. I have not tried, well, I have tried this 40 grain Sierra Hornet, had a very poor luck seating the 40 grain bullet. And we'll talk a little bit about why. So I have here one of these Sierra bullets. And if we look at the bottom of the bullet, you'll see that it's perfectly flat. There is no radius around it, and it's certainly not a bow tail. One of the challenges is shoving these bullets perfectly down this tiny thin neck tends to cause them to collapse sometimes. So I've had much better luck with a bullet that has a little bit of a radius or is a boat tail bullet. So this is a 35 grain Hornady, and it has just a little bit more of a radius on it, but not much. So I've had okay luck with these, getting these to seat properly. The ones that have worked best by far, which, pull the whole box over here. So these are 22 cal, obviously 40 grain VMAX. These are the same projectile, so that's these. The same projectile that is loaded in the standard FN. So 40 grain Hornady VMAX, that's this projectile. Hands down, the best luck. And if you look real close at it, you notice it does have the bit of a bow tail or a really pronounced radius. Very short for a bow tail, right? But it does have pronounced radius. I find these significantly easier to seat. And the number of cartridges I damage far less. Our plan here, of course, is we're going to pick some powders and we're going to do a workup and we're going to load those. But the first step, so before we even pick a powder, I know the projectile I want. I've got very limited choice. I happen to have all of these powders. So we'll do a little more research on which one we think we'll want to work on. In the meantime, we need to get these cases cleaned. And not so about getting my cases really clean. These, however, should not be tumbled. Another aspect of this FN case that's really unique is these cases are lacquered. And I'm unclear if it's like a spray-on lacquer or if they're dipped or exactly what they're doing, but they do have a coating on them to help them stay slick and flow through the P90 or the P90S PS a lot smoother. It will damage them occasionally. You'll be resizing them. In fact, the very first set that I ever tried to clean, I put them in a dry media tumbler and absolutely destroyed them. They all came out with the lacquer all chipped, and I ended up having to remove 100% of that lacquer before I could use them. They did run fine when the lacquer was removed, but they definitely run better in the FN products with the lacquer on them. So that said, I am going to clean these with an ultrasonic cleaner. And I will use a little bit of the turbosonic cleaning solution. I had bought this huge bottle of Lyman, so I'll be using that for a little while, but I am going to clean these with the ultrasonic cleaner. Not a fan of putting them in a dry media tumbler. If you do a dry media tumbler, try to use maybe walnut, but only run them for a little bit. They really don't need that long in the dry media to get clean. I would positively not recommend running these in the wet media tumbler with pins. So if you're going to use the Franklin Armory tumbler or any other brand of wet media tumbler, don't use the stainless pins. That will absolutely tear the lacquer up on the cases right away. Okay, so first thing we got to do here is get all of these clean, and then we'll do a part 2 after we've got the cases cleaned up, and we will do a workup on these and get some of these loaded. So safe reloading, friends. Be careful out there.